Hello Recruit, and welcome to Astroneer Academy 302. In earlier courses, we investigated numerous transportation options, including various rover-class vehicles, jetpacks, and VTOLs to help us move around a planet, and even shuttles that allow us to travel off-planet. But wouldn't it be nice if we had vehicles that could carry a large number of items from point to point? And maybe those vehicles could be automated, loading and unloading cargo and traveling from point to point all on their own. That would be incredible. If only such a vehicle existed. Oh, hello. That's right, Recruit. Today we will begin our discussion of rails, including the various items that go into creating a rail network. Next week, we will move on to the different vehicles you can use on your rail network. And in the week after that, we will discuss the mission chain that accompanies rails and investigate more of exodynamics history. Let's get started. While every part of your rail network is important, none of it would function without the actual rails. Yet when you browse through the research catalog, there are no individual rails included as an item you can unlock. That is because rail lines will be created automatically when specific elements are placed properly. The Rail Post Bundle and Tall Rail Post Bundle are both unlocked in the research catalog for 750 bytes each, and are both created on the small printer from one resin and one aluminum. The rail post in each of these bundles functions the same, though as the name implies, the Tall Rail Post Bundle contains rail posts that are taller than those in the other Rail Post Bundle. I should also point out that the schematic for the rail post bundles, along with the other items we will discuss today, will be unlocked by completing various missions that will be featured in an upcoming course. If you are looking to save some research bytes, you may wish to complete those missions to unlock these items. But back to the rail posts. Each bundle contains a total of 10 rail posts that you can place. When freestanding, you can interact with the bundle to produce a rail post. You can then move and rotate that rail post to position it as you see fit. If you interact with the rail post bundle to produce a second rail, you will most likely notice that a hologram of a rail appears and that the small ring on the lower section of the rail post itself lights up in the same color as the rail hologram. This is your guide to placing rail posts to ensure they are connected and can form the rail line that will serve as the backbone of your rail network. If the hologram and ring are white, then a rail line segment will be formed when you place the rail post you are currently holding. But pay attention to both that hologram and the ring. As you move the rail post further away from the original rail post, the ring will fill to indicate how much further you can move the rail post and still create a rail line segment between the two posts. Once the ring is completely full, both the hologram and the ring will turn blue, indicating you have reached the optimal rail segment length. If you continue to move the rail post much further, both the rail hologram and ring will turn red, indicating that the rail post you are placing is too far from the original rail post to successfully create a rail line segment between them. The rail hologram and indicator may also turn red if the rail post is too close to another one, or if the angle it is being placed would create too sharp of a turn in the rail line segment. I want to pause here for just a moment to point out that manually interacting with a rail post bundle, then placing each rail post is not ideal. A much better approach is to equip a rail post bundle on the auxiliary slots of your backpack, also commonly referred to as widget slots. We covered these slots way back in the first semester of Astroneer Academy and, later, investigated how they can be used to help you place extenders. Rail post bundles function in much the same way when stored in these auxiliary slots. When you activate a rail post bundle via an auxiliary slot, a single rail post is removed from the bundle and placed into your hand so you can rotate it and place it as you see fit. You can now place rail posts, creating rail segments much more quickly. But it gets even better. If you have multiple rail post bundles stored in the main body portion of your backpack, those will automatically relocate to the auxiliary slots when you empty the rail post bundle that was stored there. I should point out that if you mix and match the size of rail posts stored on your backpack, only those of the same size will automatically relocate to an auxiliary slot. So if you have been placing tall rail posts via an auxiliary slot, but you were only carrying the shorter rail post bundles in your backpack, those shorter rail post bundles will not repopulate the auxiliary slot. You will have to open your backpack and manually move those. If you already have more than one rail post placed nearby, you may see the rail hologram extending out in both directions, indicating if a rail connection is possible between those other rail posts and the one you are replacing. This can be especially useful if you wish to adjust the placement of a specific rail post, as the rail hologram will allow you to verify that you will not be breaking the rail line when moving a rail post. When you place a rail post and the rail line segment is formed, that rail line segment will automatically remove any terrain that surrounds it. This functionality really shines when you're replacing rails in a cave or on a hilly or mountainous area. Instead of needing to build up and over hills or remove terrain blocking two small sections of a cave, the rail line segment just takes care of removing that terrain for you. Of course, this means you will also want to be mindful when placing rail posts in an area you do not wish to deform the terrain. You will also want to exercise caution when placing rail posts to ensure that they do not remove the terrain you or another Astroneer may be standing on. In some cases, such an incident could send you back to the nearest shelter or shuttle for an unplanned reprint. Rail posts can be placed on any terrain, even if that terrain is above you, such as in a cave, or if it is extending vertically, such as the sides of cliffs that can appear on Glacio. Not only will this help you to extend your rail line network across terrain types that would otherwise be difficult to traverse, it gives you the opportunity to create some really unique layouts for the rail lines that will cause the rail cars to travel upside down or even spiral around. Rail posts are really great if you wish to travel across the span of a crevice or valley. You can place a rail post on one side with the second on the other side, and as long as they are close enough together, a rail segment will span that gap. If they aren't close enough, you do not need to build a bridge out of terrain to span the entire gap. You only need to build out far enough to allow you to place a rail post that is close enough to the completed rail segment. This can save you a lot of time when you are trying to build a rail network over these large gaps. Rail lines can be especially helpful as you descend into caves. Instead of needing a large quantity of soil in a canister to manually build ramps from terrain, you can simply place a rail post at the end of a natural opening to a lower portion of the cave, and then reach down and place a second one on that lower cave floor. If you cannot quite reach that far, then you can build out a small ramp leading down to the lower section, which should allow you to make your connection in your rail network. Now you can use one of the rail cars or engines to safely descend into the caves instead of spending your time gathering soil to build a ramp to get down there. There is one other way you can place rail posts, though it is one that not many Astroneers know about. So let's turn to a pro tip for placing rail posts using vehicles. That's right, you can attach rail posts to a vehicle's auxiliary slot and then place them by activating that auxiliary slot. Not only that, but the same auto reload functionality you enjoy with your backpack and its auxiliary slots is present on vehicles as well. The only downside to using a vehicle to place rail posts is that there is no hologram of the rail segment present, nor is there an indicator ring to help you judge the distance for optimal rail post placement. So if you drive a bit too far between placing rail posts, you will need to get out of your vehicle and manually move any rail posts that are too far from each other. I think this is worth it though, because you should be able to quickly get down a rhythm for rail post placement to ensure they are connecting each time. Not only that, but if you are using a large rover with a drill and a paver, you can create tunnels and ramps all while building out your rail network. Better still, since the rail posts drop off to one side of a vehicle, if you are placing them in a tunnel, they will dig out their own opening to that side, leaving the tunnel you just built free and clear so you can use it to drive through with land vehicles without worrying about running into a rail post. And if all of that weren't enough, using a rover with numerous rail post bundles will allow you to build your rail network over far greater distances than you could with the number of bundles you can carry in your backpack. We will be covering this topic again, but with less detail, in an upcoming Astroneer Academy Quick Bite, so that recruits who prefer their information in tightly bundled packages can take advantage of this time-saving tip to build out their rail networks. While the primary function of the rail posts is to create the actual rail line, their functionality does not end there. If you interact with the rail post, you will discover that each one has an input you can select to call nearest car. As the name indicates, selecting this option will call whichever rail car is nearest to the rail post upon which you initiated the call. The ring at the bottom comes into play once again, now serving as an indicator of how long it will take for the rail car to arrive. The ring begins fully illuminated green, but as the rail car travels to your location, that illuminated portion will grow smaller. This illumination will automatically scale to adjust for the distance the rail car is from the rail post you used to call it. If the rail car was nearby, the ring will decrease much more quickly than if the rail car was further away. You can see that in action here as I call two different rail cars on two different lines. The one on the right is only 4 segments away, while the one on the left is 12 segments away. You can see the sections of the indicator on the left are remaining illuminated much longer than those on the right, indicating that the rail car is further away. If you wish to cancel a called rail car, you can interact with the rail post again while the rail car is still in transit and select the option to cancel car recall. That will cause the rail car to stop moving and remain in its current location until you initiate a call using a rail post, manually interact with the rail car itself, or if an automated function calls the car. We will discuss how rails and rail cars work into automation in a few weeks when we investigate automated logistics. If there is no rail car on the current line, or if one cannot reach your destination, you will receive an error message indicating that the recall failed. You will also hear an audible warning tone and the ring will flash green to indicate an error. If the ring flashes yellow, however, you'll hear the same warning but receive an error message indicating insufficient power. The ring will continue to flash yellow, and the power cable plug and power indicator on the rail segment line itself will both remain red until you either provide sufficient power or use the cancel car recall function. That, conveniently, brings us to even more functionality built into rail posts. Since the rail cars require power to operate on the rail line, each rail line segment conducts power. I am sure you have spotted the power cable plugs on each side of the lower portion of the rail posts. These power cable plugs function in the exact same manner as other power cables we have encountered to date, so you can revisit the general concept of power cable plugs in Astroneer Academy 104 if you need a quick refresher. Since the rail line itself conducts power, you may be wondering why each rail post would need power cable plugs. The most obvious answer is that, unless you are using one of the stations we'll discuss later, you need a way to get power into your rail line. Connecting one power cable plug on a rail post to an existing power network is all that is required to power the entire rail network. It doesn't even matter which rail post is connected to your power network. As long as there is one connection, the entire rail network will have power. The power cable plugs provide additional functionality beyond simply powering the rail lines. Since the rail network carries power through each rail segment, your rail network allows you to quickly and easily extend the reach of your power network. If you set up an outpost base on the same planet, building a rail line between your main base and the outpost base will provide you with easy transportation between these two while also allowing them to share a single power network. You can also build out temporary rail line segments to reach exodynamic research aids that require power, or even to extend power all the way to a gateway chamber that you wish to activate. Your rail network not only provides you with power for any production modules or outpost bases at the other end of your rail network, but it allows you to quickly and easily expand the power network itself. For example, if you have a base on Calidor, you may wish to take advantage of solar power given that planet's increased solar output. The only problem is that your base is in darkness at night, meaning your solar panels aren't producing power. With a rail network reaching halfway around to the other side of the planet, You can establish a modest-sized solar power outpost base and connect it to a rail post power cable plug, sending all of that power back to your main base that is currently experiencing nighttime. If you plan out a couple of these remote power stations, you can get round-the-clock power from solar regardless of the time of day at your base. Rail lines are also great when you are utilizing wind power. Since the wind is not blowing at all times in all locations on a planet, it is a good idea to have some distance between your various wind turbines. Connecting wind turbines to every few rail posts will help you maximize your chances of having wind power. You can also spare yourself the frustration that can come with trying to move a massive wrecked solar array to a location closer to your power network. Instead of trying to wrestle it into place using a winch, you can build out a rail line right up to the wrecked solar array and connect it to a power cable plug on a rail post. Sure, you can accomplish this same task and other scenarios we have discussed through the use of extenders, but rails are going to be far more efficient. You would need to use an entire pack of extenders to cover the same distance as a single rail line segment between two rail posts, and 9 full packs of extenders to span the same distance that a single pack of rail posts can cover. In terms of resources used, you would only need 1 resin and 1 aluminum for rail posts, but you would need 9 copper for extenders. It's easy to see why a rail network is far more efficient. The benefits of a rail network do not stop with power. If the rail line is connected to a power network that is also connected to an oxygenator, the rail line segments also provide oxygen. This means you will remain near an oxygen source the entire time you are building your rail network, allowing you to skip placing tethers or carrying other oxygen providers in your backpack. 1 rail post segment covers the same distance that would require at least 2 tethers. So now you can extend both your power and oxygen across a fairly large distance with just 1 resin and 1 aluminum instead of 9 copper and 2 compound. And like all other power cable plugs, the oxygen carried through the rail lines will extend all the way to your destination, allowing you to extend the reach of a single oxygenator to your outpost bases. Editor Brandon here with a quick note. The oxygen line on rail segments may not always illuminate even though the rail network is connected to a power network with an oxygenator. You can see here that I am tethered to the nearest rail post and I am receiving oxygen despite the oxygen line being dark. This is just a weird hiccup in our training simulation. If this happens to you, you can essentially turn it off and turn it back on again by unplugging the rail network at the point it connects to an oxygenated power network and then plug it right back in. Doing so will typically restore the illumination of the oxygen line on the rail segments. Now, back to pre-recorded Brandon. Rail posts have one more functional use. Do you see those small posts sticking up from either side of the rail post? Those are capped off with 2 yellow hooks that appear to be connected to a storage slot. These are actually target pins, and they are housed in special reaction slots that are activated as a railway vehicle passes over the rail post. While the automation provided via target pins is a topic we'll explore more in depth in a few weeks, let's take a quick, high-level look at how these function. In this example, I have placed work lights and a medium buggy horn on a tall platform and attached a target pin from the rail post to the top edge of the tall platform. Power for the lights is provided via a cable plug from the rail post. As the rail car moves past the rail post, you can see an activation signal travel from the reaction slot down the small black cable into the target pin, which causes the lights to turn off and the horn to honk. If a rail car passes by again, the lights are turned back on and the horn honks once again. Those reaction slots will activate anytime a railway vehicle passes over the rail post, regardless of which direction the vehicle is traveling. You can also use these reaction slots to store small Tier 1 objects, though you cannot store items in reaction slots when their target pin is in use. If the item can be activated, such as a light, fireworks, or even dynamite, that activation will occur as a railway vehicle passes over the rail post. So take caution when deciding what items to store in those slots, because you probably do not want to turn your railway network into a long line of explosions. What you might want to consider, however, is placing small solar panels or small wind turbines in these slots. If you're not going to be utilizing the target pins for automation tasks, you may as well take advantage of them with power producers. This can allow you to greatly expand your power network without building any additional platforms or storage. A single pack of deployed rail posts will result in 20 of these reaction slots being available. Populate them all with small solar panels, and your power network will gain 20 units per second. They can also help with advice I provided in our first semester when we discussed spacing your wind turbines apart from one another to take advantage of the wind blowing in one region, but not in others. If your rail line spans a great distance and you have populated each rail post with small wind turbines, you are almost guaranteed to receive some power production from these small wind turbines at all times. Your railway network is not limited to traveling between only 2 destinations. Rail junctions are available and allow you to split your railway network in 3 directions. You can unlock rail junctions in the research catalog with 1,000 bytes and print a bundle of them on a small printer from 2 aluminum. Each rail junction bundle contains 5 rail junctions. Placing a rail junction is done through the same method you use to place rail posts. You can activate them individually by interacting with the bundle or by placing the bundle in an activation slot of your backpack or on a vehicle. Like rail posts, a rail junction can be placed on any terrain. While you are placing a rail junction, you will see the familiar hologram of a railway segment, though the rail junctions do not include the round indicator to help you determine optimal placement. When the hologram is white, the rail junction placement is valid and below maximum rail segment length. When the hologram is blue, you have a valid placement and optimal rail length. If the segment is red, the rail junction placement is invalid because it is either too close or too far from another rail post or junction, or because its placement would create too sharp of a turn. If you rotate a rail junction while placing it, you will discover that the hologram will automatically switch from one of the 3 available connection points on the rail junction. This can help you plan out placement of each rail junction to ensure the other 2 connection points are leading in the direction you wish to continue building a railway. If you are not satisfied with the connection once you place a rail junction, you can pick it up, rotate it, and place it back down. Each rail junction features 3 power cable plugs, allowing you to utilize them to extend the reach of your power network or connect them in ways similar to those we discussed for rail posts earlier today. A rail junction has 3 possible states, allowing railway vehicles to travel in multiple directions. To change the state of a rail junction, you can interact with it and cycle between all 3 states. If you approach a rail junction while traveling in a railway vehicle, you can choose your direction of travel by using the inputs indicated. If for some reason the tooltip does not appear, don't worry. Choosing your direction of travel at the rail junction is as simple as walking. If you want to go left, use the control for moving left. If you want to go right, use the control for moving right. If you use the call nearest car function on a rail post and there is a rail junction between your location and the nearest railway vehicle, the rail junction will automatically switch itself if necessary to allow the railway vehicle to reach your location. Rail junctions themselves do not have the ability to call the nearest rail vehicle, however. That functionality is reserved for rail posts. One other key difference between a rail junction and rail posts are the reaction slots. A rail junction contains reaction input slots instead of target pins. These reaction input slots can be used to automatically trigger the orientation of the rail junction. Each slot corresponds to the 2 rail connection points to either side of it. The one near the small railing will switch the rail junction to a straight-through connection, while the other 2 will create a turn between the 2 rail connection points nearest to the reaction slot. These reaction input slots can only be activated by a target pin, however. You could connect a target pin from a nearby rail post to ensure a railway vehicle passing over that rail post will always cause the rail junction to be connected in the specific manner. Or you could use the target pins from a variety of other automation items to precisely control each junction. Target pins can also be used to trigger the main basic function of cycling through the various connection points on a rail junction. To accomplish this, just connect a target pin to any portion of the rail junction instead of one of the specific reaction input slots. Before we wrap up today, I want to briefly discuss how to dismantle a railway and dispose of unwanted rail posts and junctions. To quickly dismantle a railway, just pick up a rail post or rail junction and store it in your backpack using the quick stow function we discussed way back in Astroneer Academy 101. As you do so, each rail post or rail junction will be placed back into a bundle in your backpack, with a new bundle being created when the current one is full. If you fill your entire backpack, you'll need to remove some of these bundles from your backpack before you resume picking up rail posts or junctions. Once the rail posts are back into a bundle, they can be placed into a shredder if you wish to discard them. Rail junctions, however, can be placed directly into a shredder without first picking them up and placing them into a bundle. Though if you wish to scrap several rail junctions at once, it's a good idea to place them into a bundle first so you can save yourself a bit of time when you drop them into a shredder. There are other modules that can be integrated into your rail network, but we will discuss those over the next two courses. Today, you have learned how to create a rail network from rail posts and rail junctions, and how those items can be utilized to expand your power and oxygen network. You also learned a bit about the automation functionality built into the railway network. Next time, we will discuss rail cars, engines, and stations, and in the course after that, we will discuss a long mission chain for rails and discover new astroneers who once stumbled upon a mystery. Until then, I'm Brandon, reminding you to keep looking to the stars.